lovely and darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy. Today I am reviewing Majesty by Katharine McGee. This is the second book in the American Royal series. Book 1 is just called American Royals. These take place in an alternate reality where instead of gaining independence from England, America gained its independence but became a monarchy. George Washington accepted the offer to become a king, and his family is still ruling the United States in the 2020s, basically. So the main characters in this series we're following 4 strong women who all have connections to the royalty. The first one is Beatrice, who is the princess who is going to inherit the throne and become the first queen to inherit and actually rule, rather than being like, the spouse of a king. But like, she's actually going to do the ruling. And Beatrice has all this apprehension about like ruling and not being able to make her own decisions, and like having her life planned out for her, but also living up to her parents' expectations, the expectations of the country. The next main character we have is Samantha, who is a party princess. She has she's got this weird position where she is the spare and she knows she's the spare, so she has like a position in the royal family and has influence. But also she keeps comparing herself to Beatrice and how Beatrice gets everything that Samantha wants. And also how the press kind of views her as this party princess, and so she lives up to that expectation, but also doesn't think it's entirely fair. A lot of the series, and especially book 2, follows Samantha, and is probably my favorite part as she like grows into herself and figures out her position in society and what she wants to do with her life. We are also following Nina, who is Samantha's best friend. So she is just a commoner. She's actually Hispanic, and she has 2 moms who work for the royal family. And so even though she doesn't have a title, she's always been part of that circle, and she and Samantha get along great. But also in book 1, Nina starts dating Jefferson, Samantha's twin brother and the 3rd royal, who's also the baby and not going to inherit. So Jefferson's like, I'm going to just enjoy being royal and having fame. And so Nina has the pressure of like stepping into the limelight and having the press follow her. And then also dating Jefferson, and like Jefferson's got his own issues. The 4th main character we have is Daphne, who is like a lady. She's nobility on her own. Her parents have a title, but she desperately wants the title of princess. And the only way to do that is to marry Jefferson, and so she has set all her sights on getting Jefferson at any cost, basically, and manipulating everyone around her. And in the process, kind of alienates a lot of people. Daphne is just horrible, but also brings tons of drama to these stories. So this is a series that I think you need to read in order, so go check out my review for American Royals first. I'm going to try to keep this non-spoilery for Majesty. Also, the rest of this review is going to spoil the first book, so if you haven't read that yet. So yeah. So book 1 ended with the king dying, and dying right after Beatrice tells him that she doesn't want to marry the guy she said she was going to marry, and she wants to go do her own thing, and her father, like, literally has a heart attack. So there's a lot of stress, especially on Beatrice, who thinks she caused her dad's death. And she's going through all that grief and guilt at the same time that she is stepping into becoming the first queen of America. And so she isn't sure what she's doing. She doesn't feel certain of herself. She's relying heavily on like the advice of those around her. And she's also having to do that thing where she has to figure out who she can actually trust or not. She was going to call off her engagement to Teddy, who's the Duke of Boston, I think, or in line to be the Duke of Boston. This other nobility who basically her family picked out and she gets along with. He's great as far as like nobles go, but like Beatrice had this other guy that she was in love with who's a commoner that she can't marry. And now that her dad died and she thinks it's because she was calling off the engagement, she really feels like she has to go through with it now, or at least put up the pretense of it for a while the country kind of stabilizes after the king's death. And so Beatrice is doing all these things, kind of sacrificing for the country. We also have the complications between the fact that Samantha first met Teddy and like they had a thing. They definitely had some moments, and Sam likes him, and she has to watch the guy she likes marry her older sister in a very public way, where like everyone's seeing it. It's on all the news stands and all the magazines, and so Samantha is constantly reminded of the fact that her sister has yet another thing that she wanted in this guy. And then the story also, my favorite part of this book, like hands down, is Samantha's story arc. Samantha also starts living her own life. So Samantha now has moved up, which is something that's not supposed to happen. Like, Beatrice should have gotten married and started having kids before their dad died. So, like, Samantha was only ever supposed to fall lower and lower in rank. She was supposed to get further and further back in the line of succession, not move up to the next in line for the throne. And so there's all these expectations that are on her now that she was not expecting and should never have been put on her. There's a line in here that you only move up in succession if something really bad happens, and something really bad happened. So Samantha now needs to learn how to be the heir and how to be the next in line, but also, like, she's hoping Beatrice gets married and has kids someday, and that she doesn't actually inherit the throne. So it's a whole thing. So much complications around the line of succession. I'm trying to decide this is spoilery. But Samantha does decide to get back at Beatrice and Teddy by going out with this other noble who is also like a party guy who has the reputation in the press. And so she starts fake dating him just to get back at them. But then, you know, they start getting along because they're so close in like personalities, and they have a lot of the same expectations placed on them and have like the same reactions for a lot of the same reasons. So watching Samantha really grow into herself and decide where she stands and who she wants to be and really take more command was like the best part of this book. Highly love that storyline so much. Nina's storyline in here, she has broken things off with Jefferson because he's completely oblivious to what is happening to her in the press and also what Daphne has been doing, and they have this fight, and Jefferson's like, no, Daphne would never backstab you and do all that stuff you said. You must be lying. And so he trusts Daphne rather than the girl that he's known since they were little, because she's been in the palace being Samantha's best friend since they were like 5 or something. Jefferson's totally clueless. Anyway, Nina is trying to step away from the palace and the limelight and the press and just do college, but also Sam still needs her right now. Like, Sam just lost her dad. She can't just cut Sam off either. So Nina's struggling with her position, with her desire to leave all this craziness and go do her own thing. And at the same time, she is going to school with Ethan, who is Jefferson's best friend. And they really connect this year and start hanging out and have like their own romance, which is super sweet. So Nina's trying to figure everything else out. And I love having her like outsider's perspective as like a commoner. But also she's still got her in and like knows the ins and out of the palace and like royal life. And then we have Daphne's story arc in here, which is, I don't know, Daphne kind of grew on me. Like, she's still awful and I want horrible things to happen to her, but she had a few moments where she got a taste of her own medicine and like things backfired on her, which was just enough to like make it fun. I loved watching Daphne in pain, especially when it was all stuff that she caused on her own. Like, every single bad thing that happens to Daphne is because of something that Daphne did, so it's entirely her own fault. So I just like don't feel bad about reveling in her misery. And Daphne she has a moment where it looks like she's going to grow up a bit, and she is the youngest out of all these women. She's only 17. She's still in high school. I kind of get where Daphne's coming from, but also, like, she had a moment where she had a couple moments in here where she could change and could become a good person, and then decides not to, and so she's bringing the drama, but in, like, some of it's really awful and hard to read. Some of this became, like, very juicy drama to just, like, enjoy. On the whole, I actually like book 2 better than book 1. I think you need to read both of them. This one also has a more satisfying ending in that it feels like there's kind of an ending. Book 1 definitely ended on a cliffhanger. Like, we knew there was a second book coming, and, like, I felt like I needed the next book immediately. This one, there's a few parts where it's like, I want that elaborated on, but if there isn't more coming, I would also be okay with that. But still, I want to delve into these characters, and I especially want to see more of Samantha. But I also enjoyed Beatrice, like, stepping up and starting to figure out how to rule and how to be in charge and what she wants to do and who she can trust. And also her and Teddy, like, develop a relationship that actually has something to stand on, which I appreciated. And there's this whole thing in this book about, like, the royal wedding coming up, and will they and won't they, but also, like, the glamour and fun of a royal wedding, and yeah, so much to love about this book. So I enjoyed Majesty by Katharine McGee. I actually gave this 5 out of 5 stars, primarily because of Samantha and Beatrice, though. Nina felt like she didn't really have enough development, and Daphne is one that I could always just do away with, and I would be, like, happy if we didn't see Daphne, because she's just bringing drama for the sake of drama, but it also, like, makes the other characters more interesting with, like, how they deal with Daphne. Loving book 2, highly recommend. Go read it. I was very happy with where our 3 good characters ended up, and I guess I could deal with what Daphne's doing. Maybe. I also feel like there's something missing in this book, and that Jefferson needs to, like, man up. He needs to become his own person. He does what everybody else expects him to do, which is okay, and, like, he's a royal and he's expected to do things settings, but watching his romantic life where he's just letting other people tell him what to do, basically. Even when he's dating Nina in book 1, like, he still doesn't have full autonomy in that relationship. He still doesn't really make decisions for himself. He does what he thinks Nina wants him to do, what he thinks his family wants him to do. And so Jefferson really needs to do some major growing up. So that's one thing I would like to see in the future, and if the series continues, which please let it, because book 2 got so much better, and I only have, like, massively high hopes for the rest of the series. So yeah, Majesty by Katharine McGee. Go check it out, but definitely go check out book 1, American Royals, first. Peace out. I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye.